Yeah, it's a little gusty in the wake of that cold front for sure. So definitely bundle up, grab the extra layer. And of course, speaking of wind, we're talking high winds as a result of Milton. As you can see, the storm is still wreaking havoc up and down the East Coast now, the southeast. We're going to zoom on in and take a look at where we are seeing some heavy rains moving across the area, some heavy banding throughout yesterday into the overnight period with flash flood warning still in effect. So this area, much of the area is still under a flash flood emergency. So as you can see here, Daytona down into Orlando and even areas like Kissimmee under that flash flood warning. So flood prone areas are in trouble. Now it's on the East Coast. It's like exiting right now. Maximum sustained winds 85 miles per hour. As we mentioned, made landfall near Siesta Key as a Cat 3 storm. Very powerful. Max sustained winds at that point was 120. Moving northeast 18 miles per hour. It's going to continue on that trajectory, heading east into the Atlantic and then eventually becoming extratropical. But it's still causing a lot of problems up and down the coast. Now, we're seeing some relief along the west coast. As we mentioned a little while ago, it took some time for them to drop off in terms of the hurricane warnings and watches and tropical storm warning as well. But just to give you a highlight here, highlighted in red from Orlando, Port St. Lucie, Martin County up to Ponte Vedra Beach, that hurricane warning is in effect. Tropical storm warning on up into the southern tip of South Carolina and even beyond that point, parts of Georgia and also South Carolina, and as well as the panhandle of Florida, they have a wind advisory. So the gusty winds extend out to over 100 miles as far as tropical storm force winds. Hurricane force winds extending out to about 35 miles. Just to give you an idea, you could be standing in, like, say, New York City and feeling that tropical storm force winds and hurricane force winds and then be in Queens and still feel it, just to give you an idea in terms of the distance there. Along the East Coast, the northeast coast, there's still a storm surge warning. Notice it's shrunken on the west coast. So just to give you an idea of what we're talking about here from Bonita Beach, northward to mid-Longboat Key, and also Sebastian Inlet, northward to about Altamaha Sound in Georgia. So still some storm surge to have to contend with into the early morning, afternoon hours, especially along the east coast of Florida, something that we're going to track and even up further north than that. Take a look at some of those totals. These were record numbers here, 16.38 inches in St. Petersburg, Florida. Hadn't seen that in quite some time. This is what we have left to go, up to about 5, maybe 6 inches, especially on the east coast. Seeing some relief on the west coast as far as rainfall amounts, but there's still some, misting and light raindrops to have to contend with on parts of the west coast. There's a look at your 7-day forecast. We're going to send it over now to Julie Millay.